Hello race fans and welcome to round 3 of the 2024 URL Karting Championship. We remain in Sheffield, but this time we head across to Parkwood in the first outdoor session of the 2024 season. So the format's a little bit different here at Parkwood, and we're only allowed 8 drivers on track at once. As we were a group of 13, that meant splitting the group. To keep things fair, we did a seeded draw, so the top 4 in the championship was put into a separate pot when the draw was done. We then spun the wheel of names to decide the draw and where everyone would start for the quali heats, because they're all grid starts. You then score points based on your finishing position in your qualifying heats. Those are then totalled up and decide where you will start in the finals. Again, as with 2 groups, the top 7 drivers in terms of qualifying points will start in final A. The bottom 6 will start in final B. So the scoring will sort of follow that pattern. All of the quali heats are worth full championship points, but then the final, so final A will be worth 20 points for the win, running down to P7, and then winning final B is the equivalent of finishing P8 if we were all on track together. So there's less points to be scored in final B, so there's everything to fight for in terms of trying to get into that top final. Now looking at the championship standings coming into round 3, and it's D Miller who leads the way, but by a single point over Horton. The latter does hold the URL Karting Championship lap record at Parkwood, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare out there today. McLaughlin then fell behind a little bit. He's 11 points off this battle for the lead now, having had a poor round in round 2 at Team Sport. Glover also closing that gap up, finding the 2 of them coming into this round joint on points. Davison, another one who had a good round in round 2, and he closed right up to this little leading pack, and he's just 4 points off that battle for 3rd place now. There's then a little bit of a gap behind as Chef Hopkins, who we're on board with for round 2 footage, finds himself 11 points off the top 5. There's then some nice tight gaps in behind as Cave's just 3 points behind, with Tracy just 3 points behind him. Tracy, absent from this one, missing a triple header, will certainly suffer in the standings, especially as Blake and Wasp both sit just a point behind him, joint on 43 points coming into this round. Jackson's then another absentee, and he only has a 7-point lead over Miller, and then who he has a 6-point lead over Housley. So they will both certainly jump him into this one. C. Miller is another absentee, so Devine and McDermott down in 15th and 16th can certainly look to make up some ground here, regardless of how good their performance is. But they'll be hoping they can close in on that group ahead. So here we are looking at Group 1, Quali 1. So it's Elliot who drew pole for the opening session ahead of Chef. No camera this time round, unfortunately, which really is a shame, because unfortunately the footage from my camera is subpar. We're probably going to have to look at a different way of mounting, I think, going forward. Housley, his key rival, starts P3 with his fellow Gazlar starting in P4. So those 3 really close. In fact, that top 4 are all really close together in the championship, and their pace that they've shown when they've been at events so far this season, so it'll be really interesting to see those 4. We've then got Horton, who sits P2 in the championship, starting just ahead of Miller, who leads the championship by a single point. So that is going to be a real interesting one. Glover is sitting joint P3, and as we said, didn't join until after the draw was done, so we flipped a coin. He landed in Group 1. He starts at the back for this one. The grid will be reversed for Quali 2, so we'll see how much of an impact that has. So we've got some sped up footage here as we climb into the karts for the first time. They were quite damp. Glover complaining that his seat was really quite wet. Not a comfortable start to proceedings. Horton there ahead of us, climbing into the kart with the white panels on the shoulders and the Union Jack on his helmet. Makes him easy to pick out when we're out there on track. So here we go as we're leaving the pit lane. We do a quick brake test, and then it's into a formation lap, warm-up lap, whatever you want to call it. So trying to get some heat if we can in the tyres, but it is very, very wet out there. It absolutely hammered it down just before the race. Hail and all sorts. Look at the puddles going around turn one. You saw my hand go up. Couldn't quite see it from the camera because of the poor angle, so my apologies, but someone had already had a spin down at turn one on the outlap. So here we are then. We skip the rest of the outlap. Big puddle there coming around the last corner. Look, it's so wet. There's so little grip. But we're coming round now to line up on the grid. G Miller just ahead of us. Horton there just to our right. A shake of the head. Just at the conditions and how much that could upset things. Waiting on the lights now. Lights out and away we go. It's a better launch than our brother ahead of us. We fight him off, pinned to that left-hand side, touching the barriers on the way through there. We see an opportunity to try and keep it wide. There's so little traction though, people sliding all over the place. We've managed to keep it though, we've managed to get past Horton and we've managed to get past Glover there. Not sure who it is just ahead of us there. Must be Craig. Yeah, and there goes Elliot. He spins out into the tight middle section, and that will really cost him this early on. So we've got Sheff here to our left. There's Craig trying to fight his way back past. We've forced the move through on Sheff. Really slippy through that section, so we slide out wide and make sure that door's shut. Now tentatively tiptoeing through the big puddle there. You see the spray coming up off the tyres. Again, this camera angle no good as we're looking down at the floor. And then it's a big slide and it's a spin into turn one. A shake of the head. There you go, the driver's behind. Sheff gets through, but the next two both went wide themselves. I don't know if that's trying to take avoiding action, but that's allowed us to carry on sitting in P2. Loads of spray on the screen as well here. So we're following Sheff into this section. He's run a little bit wider than we have. Oh, and he's run even wider through that one. We've got to run up the inside. Can we hold on? Using that bit of curb for that extra bit of trouble, then you drop it immediately, slide out wide. Really slams the door on Sheff. Perhaps not the cleanest way to do it, but that's us through from P6 to P1 in 2 laps. That, unfortunately, is the end of the action that you're really going to see from my camera. We don't make any more mistakes. Glover stays with us for the entire race, which is why you keep seeing us look back, but you never quite catch him on the camera. So just some sped up footage of us doing laps here. We keep it clean for the rest of this race, run it through to the end. So no real drama to report. We don't really see anything else that's going on. The camera's too low to the ground to pick up anyone else really travelling around the circuits. That's certainly something we need to look at for future events, because we missed quite a lot of action there. Bit disappointing to not see that start and catch a glimpse of everyone on the grid as we were fighting down to turn one. But what a start that was. So we follow the kart round and we'll just stick with it at this pace for a while. So we jump on board now as we come across the line, and it's P1, which is certainly an achievement from starting P6. We're happy with that in this wet weather. Dead easy to throw a race away here, but we stayed consistent after that slip up, and then we jump forward and here we come, trailing into the pit lane. A victory under our belt for lap 1. We've not seen how any of the timings have gone yet in terms of who scored the fastest lap, etc. But that was a lot of fun out there in some very tricky conditions. You see Glover coming behind us, he was behind us all race long. Horton in behind him though. I didn't really see much of him, so I couldn't tell you how far back he was. And then in come the rest of the lads. So a review of the standings then for the Q1 Group 1. So it was myself that came in P1 as we saw. Glover was in behind, stuck with us all race. He managed the fastest lap, went a couple of tenths quicker than I did. There's then Horton in P3. He was just a tenth slower than I was, so he was close when it was on fastest time. It was then the Chef in P4, ahead of Housley, ahead of Miller. And then unfortunately, it was Blake who started on pole. We saw spin out from our POV and we got into that middle tight section, and he unfortunately comes home P7 for this one. So now on to Group 2 Quali 1. So it was Cave who drew pole for this race ahead of his big rival Was. It's then Paddy who starts P3 ahead of Divine, with Davison who joined the seeded pot in Glover's absence at the time, starting P5 in this one. Cave and Was, his big rivals, right up at the front. Can he catch them? He'll certainly hope so. McLaughlin, P3 in the championship, starts P6 in this one. What can he do from there? So here we go. It was some footage from inside the cabin. It was still pretty fresh out, though the sun had come out now, so there's no more rain. But you get to see the start of Group 2 Quali 1 as they disappear off down the hill. Who comes back up ahead though? There's certainly some drama. Everyone very, very close. And it looks as though it could be Cave still in the lead from Was. Bit of a shunt there. Oh, and a three-way battle. And it's Was that cuts back inside Cave. Oh, and a sarcastic hand up in the air just to rub salt in the wound. It looks like Cave's been beaten as well by the next driver coming through. So here they come round the final turn. Was leading the way. That from Davison, I think, quite possibly, as they come round. And that's all of the footage we got, unfortunately, for this one. Not quite sure why this one's decided to zoom in quite as far as it has. But in case you were struggling to read, and that was McLaughlin that ended up coming home P1 in this one. He also set the fastest lap on the way, so that's an extra bonus point for him there. Davison did manage to get past his big rivals, Cave and Was, to finish P2, but it was Cave who managed to hold on in the end ahead of Was, despite Was setting the faster lap time between the two of them. Divine came home P5 in this one, with Paddy finishing P6. Bringing all the fastest laps together then from the two Quali 1 heats, and it was Glover who was the quickest man out there, 2 tenths ahead of myself, just 0.06 between myself and McLaughlin, and then just 0.04 separated him from Horton. It was actually G. Miller who came in P5, so he'll be disappointed with his finishing position as he was quicker than Housley and Davison. And then Was and Cave in their little battle. Was coming out on top in terms of the fastest lap, but Cave taking the points for finishing ahead on the track. Blake, who might have finished at the bottom in Q1 Group 1, he was actually 10th as Hopkins, Paddy and Stephen Devine from Group 2 were all slower than he was. So there's a bit of a mixed bag across the two groups. Or was that just track conditions at the time? Did someone just manage to find a good lap in there? Only time will tell. So looking at the championship standings then after Q1, no change in the top 7 in terms of positions, but some of the gaps have altered slightly. So Horton now 3 points off the lead, as McLaughlin has also closed in on Horton there. Glover does drop a point behind McLaughlin, despite getting both of them scoring the fastest lap. McLaughlin won his race for that extra point, and then Davison sits 5 points behind. Chef Hopkins has dropped a couple of points further back. Cave just 2 points in behind him now, and then our first mover in the table is Was, who climbs 2 into P8. Blake stays as he was in P9, as Miller also climbs 2, as we see Tracy and Jackson seeing their first falls. Housley in the mix there as well, climbing ahead of Jackson, up level with Tracy, so he'll be gone in the next race. Divine and McDermott both also cleared. C. Miller was absent today, so it's the 3 absentees that you see dropping there as the boys in and around them climb up the table. So back to Group 1 then, and we're into Quali Heat 2. Glover this time manages to get pole, doesn't he, after joining the grid draw late. So he snatches a pole position that way around. So he's got myself starting in P2 alongside him, with his long-standing rival Horton right in behind him on the grid. We've got G Miller starting P4 ahead of Housley and Sheff, and this time Elliott, who started on pole last time, has to try and do it from the back. Hopefully he can have a cleaner race this time and try and make a bit more of a go of it. So here come Group 2, coming off Was, all smiles. All smiles for most of the grid, it would appear. And then you get Paddy, last man to come off. We then jump to the karts. No outlap this time, it's straight to the grid in what you've been given. So lining up alongside the glove man. The wait is on for the lights to go out. Wait for the lights, and we're away. And it's a better launch than Glover. You see me trying to jump the kart forward, but we have edged just past him. Can we hold him off? The answer is yes. We cover straight to the inside, but we slide really, really wide, and he's back. He's right alongside us again, and he's trying to force us left. Horton is actually on his right hand side there, so we're 3 abreast going into that bit. We've got the inside line, so we'll make the most of that. And then we shall take it into this slow section. And again, we drop it really deep. Glover's there on our left this time. Try and keep it tight through this inside hairpin. We then open it back up. Can we get any traction through here? Not at all. We slide wide right into that wall. As we come round the final corner to complete lap 1, we've managed to get into the lead of the race, but we're even sliding through there. That's going to give Glover a real good run down into this first turn. Can we get the braking right? It's a big slide wide again. We've not managed to get it right yet, and that's allowed Glover back up the inside again. No Horton to fight with this time, so there's a bit more room on the inside, and we've got the run up the hill, and we've managed to make it stick. This time, really tentative into this centre section. It was so slippy through here, so easy to get it wrong. Use a bit of that curb, because that seemed to have better traction than the smooth tarmac did. Again, sliding through that corner right out to the outside, but Glover this time nowhere to be seen. Checking over the shoulder, but here's the next run down into the first corner. Much better, much smoother this time. Still struggling for traction, you could just catch a glimpse. They are there behind us. But that was all she wrote for this one. We don't see any more action, there's no more mistakes. We don't catch another glimpse of Glover. You can see a couple of drivers on the other side of the track there look like G Miller in his blue suit. But here we come, across the line, P2. We gained a place, we finish in first again, taking the full 20 points for another win. You can see Glover behind us there. Getting back to the pits and reviewing this one. And yeah, as we said, we finished ahead of Glover, but Glover again managing to sneak a fastest lap, just a 10th quicker, and again Horton just a 10th slower. Housley managed to get past Miller to take P4, and then Blake did manage to get past Sheff to take P6. Sheff the only one into the 45s and was complaining of issues with the kart in this quali session. So we unfortunately didn't get any footage for Group 2 Quali 2, so my apologies for that. None of those drivers had a camera on them, and we were busy debriefing, if I'm honest, in the room afterwards, so I didn't get a chance to catch their opening lap. But it was McLaughlin who started on pole for this one. He won the last race ahead of Davison, so will those two end up in the same position again? Devine gets to start from P3 here, with Paddy just in behind him. Was and Cave are inverted at the back of the grid. Cave chasing down his rival who he managed the best last time, though Was was quicker with a quicker lap time. So looking at how they ended up finishing, and Davison did actually manage to get McLaughlin this time. McLaughlin did still manage to get the quickest lap out there, but Davison managed to capitalise as they were sliding and fighting all over the place. It was a really good race to watch. Was did really well, climbed up and managed to get himself his first podium of the season. This is also Davison's first win of the season as well, so kudos to him for that one. So Was managing to get past Divine and stay ahead of Cave. Divine finishing P4, holding off Cave towards the end. Paddy finished P6. Now we take a look at the fastest lap chart for Q2, and it was actually McLaughlin who was the quickest man out there with a 43.4 ahead of Davison, so the fastest two out there in Group 2 with the fastest two on circuit. Glover then in P3 ahead of D. Miller, P4 ahead of Horton. All those boys only split by just over a tenth between any two of them. Cave was then next up ahead of G. Miller. Elliot Blake's improved his up to P8 ahead of Housley, and Was this time down in P10 despite finishing third in his race. Couldn't set quite as quick a lap time this time out. It was then Divine from Hopkins who was struggling with his car ahead of McDermott. So what does that mean for the championship standings? Well, the points at the top have extended again. It's 5 points now between D. Miller and Horton. McLaughlin closing that gap is just 6 now. Glover stays just a single point behind. Davison still 5 behind. Cave has gained a position. Well, he's drawn level with Hopkins at least for P6 in that one, with Was closing that gap up to just 3 points as well. Blake then 6 points behind with G. Miller 7 behind him. You've then got the next 3 that were out there. Housley, Divine, McDermott, all gaining places as Tracy and Jackson fall as far as they're going to fall, because the bottom 4 in the table now all absent from this one, and there's another race to go yet for them to fall further behind the pack. So now taking a look at the qualifying points to determine who ends up in which final. It's D. Miller who won both of his quali heats, taking a full 14 points. You've then got McLaughlin and Davison who are both in Group 2, both took a win and a second place, so tied for 13. McLaughlin has the fastest lap between the pair of them, so he will start P2. Glover, who got P2 in both of the Group 1 quali heats, starts P4 in Final A, and Horton, who got P3 in both of the Group 1 quali heats, will start P5. Was, who scored 4 points with a 4th place finish in his first one, and then 5 points for a 3rd place finish in his second, will start in 6th place. And then the last driver to make the A final is Cave, who that podium, the 3rd place that he scored in this Q1 run, has secured him that place. We then look into Final B, and it's just a point that they missed out by, as Housley and Divine both tied on 7, just a point behind Cave, and what a difference that could have made for them. Housley, with the quicker lap time, will start from pole in the B final ahead of Divine. You've then again got the 2 Gaslars that cannot be separated, and it'll be Miller who starts ahead thanks to his quicker lap time, as they will be the 2nd row for the B final. You've then got Paddy, who did finish P6 in both of his, and then unfortunately for Blake, having 7 drivers in Group 1 meant that finishing last in that first one was only worth a point. So he actually starts at the back of the grid, and he's been stung a little bit just by unfortunately falling into the bigger group. What can he do from there? So you'll have to join us for the next video to find out just how the finals pan out. We'll start with the B final and then move into the big grand final, the A final. We did want to try and get this all in one video, but unfortunately it made it far too long, so we've split it out. So you will have to catch the next one, hopefully in the next few days. We'll get that one up here. You can see how the finals panned out for round 3 at Parkwood. So thank you everyone for watching. Please, all the usual, like, share, follow, all those good influencer statements on the end. Feel free to drop a comment. Let us know who you're supporting in this one. Who's your favourite driver? Who have you enjoyed watching? Let's give us some feedback. See if there's anything you want to see more from the upcoming videos, anything we can do a bit better for the next round, apart from obviously change the camera position so you can actually see something. If there's any other content you wish to see in this, just drop us a comment, let us know.